For my presentation, I chose an article about verbally aggressive behavior amongst emerging adult siblings. The reason I chose this is because my older sister and I tend to fight a lot more than we used to actually, and I wanted to find out the reason as to why we do. My first thought was I was going to do a presentation about verbally aggressive behavior amongst friendships, but I realized my sister and I's relationship is one I'm more involved in, so that's why I chose that. The purpose of my presentation is I want to explore the reasoning as to why emerging adult siblings use verbally aggressive behavior more than other siblings at that age, or at a different age. And the main points I'm going to go over are the types of verbally aggressive behavior, why siblings say these messages, and how siblings perceive these messages. So in the article, the researchers gathered about 115 participants, and these were college students who were the majority of them were enrolled in communication classes, and they made sure that they were in the range of an emerging adult, so that's 18 to 25 years of age. They asked the participants to identify the first initial, or the initial of the first name of their sibling that they were targeting, and then to give an example of a verbally aggressive message they've received from that sibling in the past month or so. And then the participants were then to rate the perceived hurtfulness, intensity, and intent of that message on a 7-point scale, with 7 being strongly agree and strongly disagree being 1. So after gathering the data, the researchers identified 7 different types of verbally aggressive messages. So the first common one was name calling. So an example of that is, "Sorry, I'm not a slut like you," using slut as the name, but they're calling the sibling. And then the second one was insults, so that could be about appearance, calling them fat, intelligence, calling them stupid, or about their abilities, saying you can't drive. Withdrawal was the third one. An example that a participant used was, "You shouldn't come home anymore and you should just stay at college, like I don't want to see you." Another one was physical acts or threats. So an example of that is, "Do that again and I'll punch you in the face." Or the sibling will use blackmailing. So one that me and my sister use is, "If you wear my shirt again, I'm gonna burn your wardrobe." Repudiating the relationship. So an example of that is, "She told me she hated me and she wished she had a different sister instead of me." And unfair comparison. So that can be the siblings are talking about classes as per se, and one of them says, "Oh, like my class is so hard, like I don't know how I'm gonna do this," and the other sibling's like, "Ugh, like you think your class is hard, my class is way harder." So that's an example of unfair comparison. And the last one is negative effect, and that's simply just the sibling saying, "I hate you," or something like that. Why do siblings use these messages? They usually use criticism or relational devaluation to make the other sibling feel less favorable about themselves or in the relationship, their role in the relationship. Siblings are required to interact with each other, usually on a daily basis, and they have been comparing their behaviors, talents, abilities, interests, feelings, and thoughts, not just with each other, but by their parents, their teachers, their peers, their relatives. So there's always a comparison between the two siblings. And even if these siblings aren't conscious of it, they're constantly competing with each other in some form of way. This causes tension, especially at this time of their lives, because they've been raised and growing up with each other until 18, until the age of an emerging adult. So that's why there's so much tension at this age. How these messages are perceived. Siblings usually believe that these messages are appropriate for the relationship, and they're possibly even reflective of the relationship because they've been around each other so much throughout their lives, and they're comfortable enough with each other to say these things. So that's why arguments between emerging adult siblings are usually way more intense than with a friend. I wouldn't call my friend any of the names I call my sister, and I wouldn't be as aggressive in my arguments with my friends as I am with my sister because I'm so comfortable with her. And that kind of relates to what you said in your email to me about how you think siblings say these things because they'll believe their sibling's always going to be there for them until they're not. But that's because they're so comfortable with each other that they can be as mean as they can in these arguments. So the 3 categories they used in their research were perceived hurtfulness, intensity, and intent. So when it comes to hurtfulness, repudiating the relationship was perceived as the most hurtful. And for intensity, unfair comparison was the most intense. And with intent, physical acts or threats was perceived as the most intentional, verbally aggressive message. So my conclusion after I read this article, I've grasped a little bit better of an understanding of why me and my sister fight so much, especially at this age. And one of my beliefs is that my sister is constantly trying to prove to me that she's the more dominant one just because she's older, which connects to the information I said earlier about how siblings are constantly competing with each other. I think she uses a lot of unfair comparison with me in her messages to me to make me feel like I'm less than her just because I'm younger. Oh, I'm past 6 minutes. Okay, well, that's what I believe, and that is the end of my presentation. Thanks.